Welcome back to the Gardening with Joe and Holly radio show. Thank you for being with us today. Time for your questions, our answers. If you got a question, you can send it over to gardentalkradio@gmail.com. That's gardentalkradio@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to give us a call, you can do that on the Proclamation Hotline, brought to you by Proclamation Goods. That number, 1-800-927-SHOW, 1-800-927-7469.
Proclamation Goods creates cookware for the eco-conscious home chef. Their pans are non-toxic, have a lifetime warranty, and are made in Wisconsin. Their award-winning stainless steel Proclamation Duo cookware set is a 12-inch skillet and a stock pot that doubles as a wok. Best of all, the skillet and stock pot hinge together to form a Dutch oven. It's 2 pans with the versatility of 10, empowering you to cook more with less. If you care about your health and strive for a more sustainable lifestyle, then Proclamation Goods is for you. Supplies limited, so order yours now at proclamationgoods.com.
Alrighty, Holly, we had a number of questions come in. We'll start with this one, and this one is sponsored by Fleet Farm and fleetfarm.com. How do I get good Brussels sprouts? I always have large plants. They're very tall, but the sprouts are always small.
Right. So what you want to do is, as the sprouts start to form on the stalk, is cut the top 6 inches of the plant off, and this allows the growth then to go into the sprouts as opposed to the growth of the plant.
It will not hurt the plant. You're just stopping the vertical growth. That's all you're doing. All right. Do you prune the bottom leaves of determinate tomatoes? I have 2, each in 15-gallon containers and 10-gallon fabric pots. I have 4 Roma baby tomatoes and a couple of other baby tomatoes, and I'm in Virginia, Zone 7A. So do we trim the lower leaves of determinate tomatoes? First of all, what does determinate mean for those who are not familiar with the terminology of tomatoes?
Sure. So determinate tomatoes are also known as bush tomatoes. These tomato plants will put on a large harvest all at once, essentially, or kind of briefly throughout the summer, and then they will straggle on a little bit till the end of summer, but for the most part they put on one main large harvest. And so that's what determinate tomatoes are. Indeterminate tomatoes are known as the vine tomato, and these are the type of tomatoes that will continue to grow until you kill them, or there's a frost, or you rip them out of your garden.
And yes, we do trim the lower 6 to 8 inches of all varieties or all types of tomatoes, whether they're indeterminate or determinate. The reason for that is it prevents unnecessary soil splash up on the leaves, which can produce 90% of the tomato plant's problems by soil splash up. Now, we do incorporate mulch in that realm as well, but also it creates an air circulation and just cleans up the bottom of the plant to allow the plant to focus on more growth in other areas than growing way low against the soil. So go ahead and trim them. You're not going to hurt anything, and you'll be just fine. All right, Holly, our next question is, I have spaghetti squash going to fruit, but it doesn't look like anything that I've ever grown before, such as the spaghetti squash. They look like zucchini.
It's alive! So it's okay. You have something growing, that's for sure, right. But it's a cross. So there was some sort of cross-pollination at some point, and you want to assume and treat it like a zucchini. Yeah.
It's not that you cross those. We have been seeing this more predominant in the last 5 years, that you buy seeds from a certified grower that are supposed to be spaghetti squash or butternut squash or fill in the blank, and they have crossed in the seed production manufacturing in the field of the grower. Now, if you are growing zucchini, pumpkin, summer squash, winter squash all in your garden, you don't have to worry, and the seeds are not doing this, you don't have to worry about them morphing into something this year. If you save the seeds for next year, there is a possibility of that cross occurring from the seeds in which you saved. But they're not going to, you got zucchini or you got a spaghetti squash this year, you don't have to worry about, oh no, it's going to do this. But you treat it like a zucchini. It's not going to be as tasty as a zucchini, but it's going to be edible. So you want to discard any of the seeds in that seed pack so you don't have this issue again. And the zucchini, the pumpkin, and the spaghetti squash all are in that same family, which can cross with one another. We harvested one out of the front yard garden that was a zucchini shape, but it was bright orange as a pumpkin would.
Right.
So,
all right, so here's another question.
Yes.
Is I went on vacation and come back to find several yellow cucumbers. I know that means they are overripe, overgrown essentially. What can I do with them as they are bitter to eat? Unfortunately, there's not a lot
do you
can
have
do with them.
hogs?
Right, if you have hogs, I think chickens will even eat them too. So if you have some sort of livestock type animal,
Goats, maybe
goats, they would probably eat them. But as far as yourself,
right,
you would want to compost them.
Compost them, and you don't necessarily, overripe cucumbers would be, I'll save the seeds. Well, you can do that, but you want to make sure that you're not growing any other variety of cucumbers in your yard or adjacent neighbors, because they are very easily cross-pollinated. That doesn't mean that you save the seeds and you plant them next year, you're not going to get a cucumber. You're going to get that. But it may be similar to, as the previous question was, a morphitation of several varieties that do not taste good.
Right. And just keep in mind, whether you go on vacation or not, you want to frequently harvest cucumbers. As you harvest them, don't wait until they get to be this ginormous.
If I get them bigger, that'll be more for me to eat.
Right.
It goes downhill quick.
No. So you just want to keep in mind that what plants are trying to do is essentially survive. So they're going to continue to put out the seed, which is in this case the fruit. And so the more frequently you harvest, the more fruit they're going to put out, and the better it's going to taste.
All right, Holly, you are a multi-award-winning Wisconsin State Fair canner, and here's a question for you. I know it is very important to get as many air bubbles out, or get the air bubbles out of a jar before putting in the water bath canner. I've always seemed to have bubbles in my jar no matter how much I try to get them out. Is this a problem, and any advice on doing a better job?
So as long as you get out the air bubbles as much as you can, that's the important part. If for some reason you still have air bubbles, it's perfectly okay. It's not the worst thing. We use what's called it's a little tool, and it's a headspace measurer on one side, and the other side it's just a flat
spatula.
It's a piece of plastic. It's really good for getting air bubbles out. Some people use chopsticks to get the air bubbles out. Some people use skewers, like wooden skewers for kebabs on the grill. Whatever works for you. You could try a different method. But don't use metal. You want to use something that's either wood or plastic to get those air bubbles out. So not getting every air bubble out is not detrimental to the proper canning procedure, but as many as possible is best. And couldn't you actually tap the jar gently on the surface of the counter or towel in order to try to extract some of those bubbles, or is that frowned upon because of the potential of a hot jar and breakage and all that before you get in the canner? You could tap the jar. Okay. However, you want to, when it comes to canning, once you are filling those jars, especially with certain things like jams or pickled vegetables, you want to work swiftly and quickly, and sometimes tapping the jar might take more time, or as you mentioned, could possibly break the jar. You could tap it on a towel on the surface of your counter, table, whatnot. But the biggest thing is just to possibly use a different method. If you are using the back of the headspace measure or the spatula thing, you can try that, or you could try something like a chopstick, and that would help you as well. Okay. All right, another question about canning, Holly. How much does pickling/canning salt matter versus just kosher salt for making pickles? So pickling salt has the absence of iodine. And so if kosher salt has the absence of iodine, you can use that as well. So iodine is a bad thing when it's not recommended for the process of canning anything. Right. Okay. All right. So there you go. For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.